Welcome to another real scary tale. This is something that happened to me at John A. Winship Elementary School. Now, if anybody ever went there, they would know this school is in Spring, Texas, where I grew up, southeast of Houston, Texas. A little town with a few thousand people. I was one of them. So when we first moved there, I think it was 1979, and I was around 9 years old at the time. And I was introduced to the teacher and all these people there, and I got to make friends. And the first few weeks that I was there, it was kind of difficult because I'm transitioning from coming from New York into Texas. It's a whole huge change for me. And if anybody's ever moved, you know how difficult that is for a kid. I had made friends with another kid. His name was Bill, and he was really funny. We used to talk about UFOs and stuff all the time. And we used to have what you call recess. So it was like, after lunch you could go out and play for a little while, maybe 30-40 minutes, then they call you back in for your next class. And one day me and Bill were hanging out talking about UFOs, but where we were hanging out is in the schoolyard in the back. This is in Texas. In the schoolyard in the back they had woods, and we would hang out right at the borderline of where our schoolyard ends and the wood begins. All right. So we were hanging out there, and I noticed one time that there was this kid about around our age, like in the shadows there looking at us. So I yelled over at him, hey, what are you doing? You trying to scare us? He didn't say anything. Then Bill looks at me and he goes, yeah, I saw him there the other day too. I just didn't say anything. I was like, really? He's like, yeah. So, we didn't think anything of it. We left, went home, came back the next day. We were at the same spot again, and there you go. There's this kid there again. And he comes a little bit closer towards us, and he's like, what are you guys doing? And we're like, oh, we're just hanging out. We have recess for school. I'm like, aren't you supposed to be in here? What are you doing? He goes, oh, my parents won't let me go to school. And I thought that was weird. 9 years old, you don't really know what to say to that. But I thought it was kind of cool that he doesn't have to go to school in a sense. And Bill did too, So we started laughing. We ended up talking to him and making friends. And like just about almost every day we'd see this kid and talk to him. And I think we got the name when we asked him his name. I think his name was Mike, if I remember correctly. And we used to always look out for him when we had recess every day after school, every day after lunch. And one particular time, this is like about a week or so after being there, after meeting him and talking for a bit and getting to know him a little bit. Really, he didn't talk a whole lot, but he would say little things here and there, just making observations about us. And one day he asked us, it was after lunch, he's like, hey, do you guys want to come hang out here with me? And I looked at him. I'm always curious. I'm like, yeah, it'd be kind of cool to go into the woods and hang out, And then Bill was kind of scared, and he's like, no, man, no, let's not do that. We're supposed to stay on the school grounds. And I was like, what's wrong? Are you afraid? And here I was peer pressuring him, not knowing even who this kid was. But this kid was so adamant about us getting off the school grounds and going out and hanging out with him. So something really struck me strange when he kind of like, when we asked him, and we asked him, would you come out here and hang out with us, in the schoolyard? And he automatically just turned around and walked away. We didn't hear from him until, a few days. A few days went by. We're back out there again for recess, and we see him, and we're like, hey, what happened the other day? We asked if you wanted to come hang out because you wanted us to come hang out with you. But for us, we're in school. We can't leave school grounds. What seems to be the problem? He goes, then he started kind of taunting me and Bill in a sense, saying, oh, you guys are afraid to go off school grounds. Is that what it is? And I kept thinking that, even up to this day, I think it's strange that someone would start taunting us about that. And, this time I was thinking about, what? I guess it got to me, and I was like, let's go out and hang out with him. Let's see where he goes, because we could always walk back. It's not far. The teachers that was watching all the students for recess saw me going out. She goes, Ravi, what are you doing? And I was like, I didn't say anything. And then she goes, hold it right there. You're going to get in trouble. And I'm like, okay. So I stopped, and Bill grabbed me and stopped me. And we turned around, and I went to look back to see where Mike was. He was gone. He just like disappeared, So then she came up to us and she goes, where do you guys think you were going? And we're like, well, we're just going to go hang out, right here, right in front of right close to the schoolyard. We're just going to be in the woods part of it. She goes, nobody is allowed to go off of the schoolyard, especially into the woods. So we were like, what's the big deal? We're just going to hang out with one of the kids that are out here. She goes, what kid are you talking about? And then she goes, you know what? Come into the office. Let's talk for a minute. So she took us inside, and we went into her office, and she sat down. And she goes, you said there was a kid out there? How old was he? I said, I don't know. He looked about our age, you know? What did he look like? I said he had like sandy blonde hair, kind of dark blonde hair, I think. I couldn't really see his eyes because it was too, he's always like, in the woods, you can't really see any detail. And he wasn't that close to us. I'd say he must have been 15 feet away from us or so or more. And she goes to me, she goes, have you seen this kid often? I said, well, last week we saw him a lot. And that last time when you stopped us, he was asking us to come out just to hang out with him. And I felt bad and I wanted to go hang out with him. And Bill said the same thing. And she looked at me and she goes, what, did you get a name from him? And I said, yeah, his name is Mike. And the look on her face when I said his name was Mike, and the description, I guess when I was giving the description of what he looked like, I can tell that something was seriously wrong. I just wasn't sure what it was, and she wouldn't tell us. And she goes, look, you're not to go over there anymore. Please do not go to that part of the yard, and we're going to tell everybody at school not to go there. So they made an announcement in school that nobody is supposed to go to that part of the schoolyard. And everybody knew that it was me and Bill that were the ones that were going out there all the time. And everybody kept asking us what was going on. So we told them that, there's this kid, his name is Mike, and blah, blah, blah. And the rumor went around school like crazy. And through that rumor is how we found out what happened. Now I know why the teacher had that look on her face. It was because someone had told us. Somehow the rumor got around to someone who knew what was going on and said, yeah, there was a kid that was abducted and killed back in the woods there. His name was Mike, and he looked exactly the way that you described him. And I'm like, I'm getting chills even telling you this. That's how scary this is to me. I'm getting goosebumps and chills just saying this, because I realized that we may have been talking to a ghost when I was like 9 years old, and he was trying to get us to go into the woods. Thank God we didn't go into the woods. I don't know what would have actually happened. True story, We met this boy in the woods and found out that he was not who he seemed to be. So if you guys ever see anything like that, and they try to pull you into the woods or ask you to go, don't go, Alright, talk to you guys again soon, and I hope you enjoyed that. Please spread the word, subscribe, and tell your friends to subscribe. Alright, thanks a lot. Welcome to Real Scary Tales with me, Rav. Today I'm going to talk about a trip that we took to Chandelier. Now this, I think I was in my early 20s when we took this trip. It was me, my cold-hearted mother, and my very mean stepfather, and my little sister Sarah, and Gabriel, my little brother. And we took a trip up to Chandelier, and it was I think it was upstate New York that we went to, and it was in the winter time. Snow had come down like crazy during this time, and it was really hard to drive. I remember that. And it took like a couple hours to get up there, at least almost 3 hours. We had to drive slow. It would have been faster if the weather wasn't so bad and the conditions to drive weren't so bad. So we rode 3 hours to Chandelier, and within that time I pretty much slept most of the way. By the time we got up to Chandelier, as we were approaching the house that we would stay at, it was a big 3-story old Victorian house. And I remember looking at it and wondering, wow, this looks like you're going back in time. It looks so old. And we got out of the car and we slowly walked towards the house, and my mother and my stepfather were talking about the people that they had a timeshare or something like that with this house, so everybody got to take a turn staying at the house. So I remember we went in the front door, and when you walked in the front door, just like on the outside, I felt like we were back in time. It got even worse. I felt like we went really far back in time when we went through the door, because everything looked like how it was, I guess maybe 100 years ago. I don't even know if 100 years, maybe exaggerating, but I remember they had these really old TVs and these really old radios that were really big, and all the furniture, everything looked really old. It just looked like all antiques. And I remember we stayed up for a little while and we talked and had food and got to meet some of the neighbors. And then it was time to sleep. I'd had like a drink or two here and there with the family, and maybe I think I had a glass of wine or something. And everybody kind of like got their rooms. They showed me to my room, and Sarah and Gabriel got to stay in another room, and my parents stayed in another room. And I was on the second floor in this place, I think, if I remember correctly. And I remember going to sleep, and I don't know if I was awake, and I don't know if this was a dream or if this was real. That's the hard part about this. I remember it was very, very dark out. It must have been maybe 1 to 2 or 3 maybe in the morning. I can't remember now. It's so far back. But I remember waking up or opening my eyes and seeing someone standing in the doorway. I thought it was my little sister, Sarah. So I kept saying to her, what's wrong? Is anything wrong? What do you want? Go back to sleep. And she didn't answer me. She started walking away. So that kind of like made me more curious. So I got up and I started to walk towards the door, and I looked out the door and she was walking away. And when she was walking down the hallway, this is on the second floor, there was a ladder that was going up into an attic area, I guess. And I looked at that, and I saw her standing by the step, by the ladder to go up into the attic room. So I kind of turned around and looked behind me, and then I turned back to look, and she was gone. So I assumed she must have gone up into the attic. So I slowly walked towards the ladder, and I started walking up the ladder, and I kind of like peeked my way in and looked around. As I got closer to the top, I looked, and I could see this big, huge wooden floor, and this whole place had a lot of different types of furniture and different things inside there. And I looked around. I didn't see her up there because there wasn't a whole lot of light, except there was an altar-like looking thing at the very, very back of that attic. So I got up, I climbed up there, and I walked all the way back. And what I saw was a bunch of bones, like different types of animal bones, put together in a circle with candles. And I remembered this from when I had the other experience where there was missing time. There was something very similar that looked like that. And when I looked, there were pictures there, and I took a look at the pictures, and there were pictures of my family, my real mother, my real father, my mother, and my brothers and my sister. And I couldn't figure out how my stepfather, my mother only recently started, a relationship with, how he could have these pictures. I'm still up to this day curious about that, but I remember going back downstairs and feeling very strange that I saw these pictures and wondering what these bones were in this big, like, altar-like looking thing with pictures of my family. That was weird. As I was telling the story, a whole bunch of stuff just fell, and I'm going to add this into the story because that was scary. That was really scary, guys. So I'm just letting you know that something very strange. If you heard that was all the stuff falling just now, and even the animals jumped back. But getting back to the story, that was scary. So you guys got to get a real scare here with me tonight. That was wild. I wish I could have gotten this on video so you can see it. But that was my trip to Chandelier, and I'm going to hopefully get another story in here soon. I wish I had this on video, guys. I'm sorry, but that was scary. Alright, talk to you guys soon.
Hello again, it's me, Rav, and this time I'm going to talk about a trip to Pennsylvania that our family took from Brooklyn, New York. And we used to go on the weekends all the time up to Pennsylvania. The whole family would get in there. It would be me, my mother, my father, and my two sisters. And they were both older than I am, and not much. I mean, I was like 7, my other sister was 8, and the other one was about 12. So we drove up 3 hours to go to Pennsylvania. And when we got there, it was, I guess, around maybe 2 to 3 p.m. somewhere, and we got into, I guess, an area where you're allowed to park, where there's lots of seating and tables and stuff, the wooden tables that people can sit around and they can build fires there. They also had like barbecue pit style things. And me and my sister decided to walk around a little bit, and as we started walking around, I remember that I saw something gleaming on the ground, like in the concrete. And I kept looking at it, and I walked closer, and I realized there was nickels and dimes and quarters. And I got so excited because I told my sister, the one that was older than me, Shaman, I told her, I said, look, there's money on the floor. And she looked at me and I was like, let's get it. I said, so we went over, started picking up the money there, and we turned around and looked, and there was more change. So we started following where the change was, and we started picking up all this, like a whole pocket full of dimes, nickels, and quarters. And then we stopped and looked around, and we saw this circle in the ground with these candles all around it, and like a star in the center. And I kept telling her, I said, that's pretty weird. I wonder what this is. You know, it had this, I guess now they call it a pentagram, but it's supposed to be something satanic. But we were children, we didn't know anything about that back then. And all I remember, like shortly after that, was just waking up in the van going home. And when I woke up, the first thing I did was check my pockets, and I was like, where'd my money go? And then Shaman, my sister, woke up right after me, and she says, yeah, where's our money? She goes, we collected all this money, and we don't know where it's at. And then I said, how did we get here in the van? When did we start leaving? I don't remember leaving. And then my other sister, Nada, she was sick, and she started puking. And then I looked at my father, and I said, when he was like in the space, he had this look like he was lost. And I kept asking him, I said, when did we leave? I don't remember leaving. And then my mother and my father and everybody kind of looked at each other really strange. You could see the look in their eyes. Everybody's confused. And my father says, you're right. He goes, I don't remember leaving either. He goes, but then we never spoke about it. Like, we all agreed that we never remembered leaving. And it's this missing gap of hours. I mean, it went from 3 o'clock in the daytime till it was 8 or 9 o'clock at night. And you have 4 or 5 hours that are just gone. So I remember that as a kid, and I'm not sure what that was, what happened. I don't know if it was an alien abduction or if it was something else. It was just so strange when you think about it. All that missing time, and up to this day we cannot account for it, none of us. So those are one of the very strange events that happened in my life.
Hello again, it's me, Rav, and I'm here to give you another real scary tale. This one I call The Voices. When I was in elementary school in Brooklyn, New York at PS 254, I used to enjoy playing outside all the time after class, and especially on the weekends when we had no school. It's a lot of fun to go outside and just, play ball, ride your bike, do whatever. And I remember during that time I was around 7 or 8 years old, and I used to have a lot of dreams and hear a lot of things, and always assumed it was only dreams because it was late at night when I'd hear all these weird voices. I remember particularly one day when the whole family was outside sitting out in front of the building, and we were playing for the whole day. I was having a lot of fun, and I got really, really thirsty, and I decided to go inside. And for some reason, before I got to the door, I had this strange feeling as if someone was inside already, but I knew the whole family was outside. So as I opened the door and I started entering into the hallway to walk into the kitchen or the living room, I could hear voices as I'm walking into the hallway now through the door. And I'm trying to figure out where these voices are coming from, and they sound like they're coming from the bathroom. And I start walking in slowly and cautiously, and the more I listen, the more I can hear these voices talking amongst each other, like if they're all taking a bath in the bathroom. It sounded like a family to me. I wasn't sure. I heard adults and I heard kids talking, and then all of a sudden I got scared, and I'm getting goosebumps now when I tell this story because I remember hearing the voices so vividly, so clearly, and hearing them say, shh, shh, he's coming, he's coming, he's coming. When I heard that, I knew at that point they were talking about me, whoever they were. I was so thirsty, I wanted to go inside to get a drink, and once I heard that, I lost my thirst, I lost everything, and I ran like a bat out of hell back out through the front door, ran outside where my mother, my grandmother, and father, and brothers and sisters, everybody was at, and I went up to my grandmother, because she's the one I always went back to. She's the most spiritual one in the family, and I told her what had happened. And then she told my mother, and they all sat around, and my father went inside to check, and he came back out laughing. I was trying to figure out why he was laughing, and he said there's nobody in there. He said I was just hearing things. But I heard these voices since I was very young. I used to hear them, I just couldn't see them, but I'd hear them all the time. And that particular time scared the hell out of me. My grandmother told me she thought that it was spirits that had been there before that had passed away. Now that's like the wrong thing to tell me, because I could never be in that apartment alone, because after she told me that, I kept thinking about spirits being there. That was scary. Welcome to True Tales of the Paranormal. Today, we're going to talk about the cat that called my name. It's a true story. There's no fiction involved here. Even though it may sound like it's not real, I can guarantee you 100% that this is real. I'm speaking to you like I'm speaking to anybody else, even though it's a microphone, but I'm telling you this is the truth. I grew up in Houston, Texas, which is a small town southeast of Houston, Texas, if anybody's familiar with Texas. This was back in the 1980s, in the mid-1980s actually, or early 1980s. I can't remember, maybe 1983 or somewhere around there. And I was around 12, 13 years old at the time, so was my best friend. And we were always hanging out, and playing Dungeons and Dragons and telling ghost stories about things that happened to him, about things that happened to me, things that happened to both of us. It was pretty scary, during that time. And I remember there was a particular day where I had a very strange episode. I remember me and all the rest of our friends had gone out, usually the kids that I grew up with on the same block. So there was Andy, there was Tim, there was Carlos, there was Jeremy, there was Tim's sister Teresa, and there was Andy and Adam, and me and Shannon, and we all went walking in the back of the woods one day. So it was a whole group of us, and we were all having fun till we got to the back of the woods. We saw this van parked a good distance away from us. It was this white van, and I remember we all kept looking at it saying, hey, look at that white van there, isn't that strange? And everybody was like agreeing, saying, yeah, it's pretty weird. All of a sudden, as we're walking, slowly the white van starts slowly driving towards us. So I pointed it out to everyone, and everybody's like, holy shit, look at that, I think it's going to come towards us. And I told them, I said, start running. So we started running as fast as we could. We went down into this big giant ditch that they had to run down, because they knew the van couldn't follow us there and come up on the other side where there's no way for it to go down into the ditch and come up. So we made it all the way across, and then the van just drove off. But we were horrified by the thought that somebody was in that van that may have wanted to harm us in some way. So we all got really spooked out. It was starting to get a little bit dark at this point, because we'd gone out around 6:30, 7 o'clock, where it starts to get dark around that time of the year. And I remember we were all just joking around playing, and everybody's taking rocks and throwing it as high up in the air as they can. So I took a rock myself, and I threw it with all my might as high as I could up into the air. We all watched it go up, and we watched it come down. And when it came down, it hit Andy's little brother Adam in the eye and busted his eye open. And we were so busy paying attention to the rock coming down that we didn't look to see where it was coming down. And man, this was horrible, because we had to run with him and carrying him all the way home. When we finally got there, his parents were so angry, they thought I did it purposely. So they kind of, I guess, came down on me pretty hard about it, and then they said they had to tell my father, and my father and I never really got along. When my father found out what happened, he had to pay $100 for the hospital bill. Me and him got into a very bad argument, and meanwhile I'm a 12, 13-year-old kid, and he's a grown man, and my father wanted to fight with me at this point, and I said, you know what, let's do it. I got angry, and he just walked away. And all I remember is being so angry, walking around the room thinking, everybody's coming down on me for something I did by accident. When I spoke to Shannon, who was my best friend at the time, I told him, he said, yeah, it was an accident. Everybody agreed it was an accident, but they didn't take it that way, So I ended up getting in trouble for that. That night, I just paced back and forth in my room, thinking maybe I should sneak out the window when he goes to sleep. But I just sat there silently in my anger, thinking about the whole thing and wondering how the hell could that rock have just come down. I threw it so high up, and it had to come down and hit someone in the face, and now, they were scared that he was going to be blind, Andy's younger brother, Adam, and I was scared too, but it didn't turn out that way. He just had to get a stitch or two, and that was it. But during the night, I remember just being in the room because my father didn't want me to leave. He confined me to the room. So about an hour or two passed by, and it really got dark at this point. It's like 8, 9 o'clock somewhere, I guess, by the time this happened. My father started calling my name really loudly, like he was angry. and all I heard was Ravi, really loud. So then he comes busting into my room, but he had this look on his face and he didn't say anything. So I said, I always wondered where this expression came from. I said, you look like you saw a ghost. Is there something wrong? And he goes, get over here. And he was still angry with me. And he starts pushing me out to the living room, and we get to the living room, then we get to the window by the kitchen where the front door is, and he says, I'm like, what's going on? He goes, just shut up. So I'm like, okay, you brought me out here to tell me to shut up. So I just kept quiet. And I'm like, what'd you bring me here for? He's like, just shut up. And I'm like, all right. So I just kept quiet and I started listening. He goes, listen. And all of a sudden I heard, and let me tell you, when I heard that, it was like something calling my name, like a dying spirit or something like that. So I told him, I said, what the hell is that? I said, it's got to be one of my friends playing around, somebody bullshitting around, joking with me. And he goes, look out the window. So we looked out the window, and I swear to you, I kid you not, there was a cat. Half its face was black, half was white. Its mouth was just open, and it was saying my name as clear as day. It sounded like it was a crying person or something. It was like, and it kept saying it over and over again till it got me to the point where I just lost it. And I had a BB gun, and I went and I grabbed my BB gun and I went to go out the front door, and my father goes, where are you going? I said, I'm going to go shoot it. I don't know what it is. I'm scared. I'm going to go shoot it. And he grabbed me and pulled me away from the door. He goes, don't go out there. He was actually scared. My father, who's supposedly the most bravest person at the time that I thought, was scared. He looked so scared. It was funny, but I was scared too. I'm not going to kid. And next thing I knew was that we're sitting down inside, and I said, let me call my grandmother, because my grandmother's really spiritual. She's very, very spiritual. She believes in Christ and the whole nine, and she was like, I knew she would know what to do if this is an evil spirit. So I ended up calling my grandmother in New York from Houston, Texas. Made a long distance call to her. She answered the phone, and she was so happy to hear from me. And she could tell there was something wrong. She said, something wrong? I said, yeah. I said, there's a cat calling my name. And she goes, oh my God. She goes, I'm going to pray for you right now, and you have to say it with me. So we both started praying together on the phone. And part of me was, I wasn't sure what to believe. But as we started doing it, the cat stopped calling my name. And I felt a little bit better and a little bit safer. And I could see that my father felt different because the look in his face changed. And after this had all happened, it was like a little time went by, and I called up my best friend Shannon, and I told him what happened. He started laughing. He thought it was funny. I ended up meeting him outside in front of his house, and I said, he goes, I want to go down to your house and see if the cat's there. So I was like, dude, I don't want to do that. And he's like, no, seriously, I want to see it. I'm like, all right. So we started walking down the street, and we got to in front of my house, and lo and behold, the cat was actually there. And when it saw me, it started saying my name again, and I could see the look in Shannon's face was the same look in my father's face. They were both scared, just as scared as I was, and I'll never forget that experience. But if you want to feel weird, say your own name the way I said my name. My name's Ravi, so I said, Ravi. Say your own name if your name's Sarah, if your name's Bobby, if your name's Jimmy, just say it like that, and you'll get the idea of how this actually felt by seeing a cat with its mouth open and like a spirit calling your name. So this is just one of the stories that I wanted to tell you guys, but it's a true story, man. I kid you not. This is a real story. I have people to verify and back this up that I grew up with. All right, so I'm going to be coming at you guys with a few more stories, so sit back and enjoy. And subscribe to my channel for some more great, really original, no joke, no bullshit, real stories. Talk to you guys. Have a good time. Subscribe. Tell your friends.